Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's January 10th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. A quick look at our daily chart. You can see we trended higher today, bullish day. It started out looking like it could be another choppy sideways day, and once again we broke higher, and we didn't close on the high today, but we were close. But we closed up regardless. So it looks like we're still pushing higher. So you can't seem to sell this market off. Don't argue with it. If it goes up, go with it. And if it does sell off, we'll sell off with it. But as long as it's going up, we're going with it. So uh, anyway, there's a look at the daily. Let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart and we'll take a look at that and we'll go through the trades and we'll wrap this day up. All right, here we are. Here's a high level look at it. We started out, looked like we were going to be in this range. We had this first leg up and then a correction, and we bounced here. Really, this set the trend line, but I wasn't convinced there was a trend here yet, so I didn't draw this until we bounced there again. And you can see then we got another confirmation. So by this time, it's pretty obvious, especially when we're starting to break higher, that there is a trend line here. Now, you still don't really know which one's going to win out. You just kind of have to wait till you get enough evidence. You can't just go long blindly here because it bounced off this trend line. But once we broke higher, we pretty much made the measured move based on the width of the range. You can see we overshot that a little, but notice how we found that resistance instantly there, and then once again, and then turned down. And I'll show you this too. We had this first measured leg, and I talked about possibly this being the early target, which it was, and we hit that almost to the tick. We actually traded a little higher, but it closed at that same level. And then notice how we sold off pretty strongly. Um, that's because people are expecting a correction there, especially that far away from the EMA once it's made a measured move. And the fact that you got the stems up here that are, notice you don't get any closes, but your stems up there, and that's just the momentum from the big move up, still pushing up, and uh, I like that. I marked that green because it's a little aggressive trying to pick that top right there. But we'll talk about that trade a little more when we get there. I like that trade, and I'm probably going to take it most times. But we'll talk about it when we get to it, and I'll explain it a little more. Let's zoom in here and go through our trades. And you had to be patient this morning, that's for certain. You had this trend working down, and you got a first entry, and then it turned up here and turned back down. So when it broke through there, it was a second entry. It never broke below this bar. So if you wanted to go short there below that bar, it never triggered. And that's a really big bar to trade on an engulfing bar. It's 14 bars because a lot of times an engulfing bar will force you to have to put your stop above the previous swing. And so by the time you do that, it's a really big, it's a really big, you're taking a lot of risk on there basically. So then we had a failure here, but it's not a place you look for a failure at the end of a trend because we've already had a break here. But when it tried to go higher again and failed, if it breaks below that, you got a trap there. You basically got a double failure to the upside and a second entry short there. Now, normally, I don't think that closes in the lower 1/3, but because you've got a failed second entry long and then another attempt to go higher that fails, when you're still looking for a new low here, uh, you're going to have people trapped. So I think you can take that trade. It's a little more advanced. If you didn't see it, don't worry about it. That's not a trade everybody's going to want to take. But if you recognize that there's a trap there, if it breaks lower, it's probably going to rock it down real fast. And it may not go that far, but you guarantee you're going to get a scalp almost. It's just going to rock it down and try to make this new low again. And it usually will work out pretty quickly too. It then bounces. It gives you a higher low here, but that really looks congested. It's right into the EMA. That's really tempting. And if you want, and you could argue, say, hey, it does confirm the trend line, but that's so close together there. I want another test that doesn't come to way up here before I'm trusting this trend line. So I just think it's real risky entering there. It's a possibility. It also is a second entry. Notice the new high right there. That swing has higher. So you get a first entry, then it turns down again, turns back up. So when it breaks above that little 2-bar matching high, that's a second entry. So maybe I'll give it a green, but I just think it's too risky. It turns out to be a great trade, and it takes off. You get a close outside, multiple swings to a new high, then it turns down. And you did try to go higher here twice, and it breaks higher and fails and turns down. I don't. You're so close to the EMA. It's a first entry short. You could argue that it's a failure, but we just got all that support there, and I just don't think you can go. The only way you could take this is on the engulfing bar. Maybe, and that's a maybe, is see if there's enough room, and there's not. I mean, I just didn't like it in real time. If there was enough room there, maybe you could take that as an engulfing bar, but you'd have to drop a limit order in after it broke lower, and I don't think you would have got that chance. It's basically a trap, but I still don't like it because it's right into all that support. You can see it didn't matter in the end, but you won't know that until it's too late. So I just think it's too early in the day to risk an entry that you're not 100% sure on going short into that kind of support where we've bounced that many times. But drops on down, starts working sideways. You get a little failed break out the low side here. Again, you got a little 2-bar matching low. It's a second entry long. Actually, technically, that's just a first entry because you make a double top here, so it's really just a first entry. Again, when you're in a little congestion like that, you don't care about the counts on the entry really. I just think it's dangerous going long when you're trending lower and you're still in the possible channel. It ends up breaking out the upside and failing and giving you a 4-tick, very bearish bar. I like going short right there. You should get a scalp out of that, and maybe it runs all the way back down to the lows again, and if this is a trend line, at least to there. And that's exactly what happens. It runs straight down to that location and then bounces. Again, this is right at the trend line, and this looks, it was looking, I mean, if you could have entered this on the engulfing bar, but I think it broke lower and then turned up and then came back down and went back up again. I can't remember exactly. This one did something kind of odd, if I remember right. It's not really a place you want to take an engulfing bar. You want this to close bullish and then go long, and it just didn't do that. So I think you got to sit tight on this one. You could argue there's a failure here, but it's not really a spot you're looking for a failure. It would have worked. It's just not a good spot for a failure. If you just sit tight, a few minutes later you get a triple test here and a second entry long, and so I like going long on that one. Notice your new high, first entry, pulls back, makes a higher low. If it breaks above that, it's the second entry. This is played out over here, and we've tried to go lower 1, 2, 3 times. Go long right there. That's another nice move. Close outside a couple. Once again, you kind of get 3 swings, kind of like you did over here. You get your 2 swings and then one more last push up right here, and then you also get the lower high because it's almost a repeat pattern. Maybe you take this when it breaks higher, fails, turns down. It's if it breaks out, it's a engulfing bar that actually goes right through 2-bar matching low, and so there's a good chance it's going to trap people and run on down if it breaks through there, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, it looks a lot like the same thing that happened right here. And then we're just kind of bouncing along here. We're making higher highs each time, but we're making kind of consistent lows. And then you get a triple test here with a nice signal bar. I like going long again. You got support, plus you have just horizontal support, all those lows. Then you've got the trend line, so you got both of those working at your back. I like going long there. You get a higher low here, and again, that's a second entry, but it closes all below the EMA, and it looks congested. So I think you got just skip that one. We've already come off the highs. It's possible we might work on lower. So just sit tight and see what happens. And then this looks like it did yesterday. It starts chopping higher. So any of these in here like this one where you got room to get out that gives you a good signal bar, maybe you take those because this is starting to look like one of those trends again that's going to keep chopping higher. You came back here, but that one's got too much stem and it's right into the resistance. Here we've already had the break and there's not much room back to the resistance high, so just sit tight on that. But it notice once you get the break, it makes two legs up and it does break out and it makes that perfect measured move. This is what we talked about earlier. I marked this green because this is a more advanced trade. It's a little aggressive, but I'm going to tell you, I like that trade. A lot of times that'll be the high of the day, and you might get a nice runner out of this. You still probably would have got a nice runner, but it wouldn't have been, the high of the day type runner. But just assuming you got that, I mean, there's 9, almost 10 points there. So you could, if you just got half of them, that's 5 points on an easy, pretty straightforward entry. But notice you got the trend here. You got the break, 2 legs up, and a second entry short, and it closes at a perfect measured move there based on this first leg up, and that was kind of our first target. And so that's a good place, possibility of where prices might reverse. Notice we run back down here and we bounce right off that trend line yet again. And that's another, it's a hidden second entry, but there's a second entry there. But, this thing is, something's going to give one way or the other. And there's just not enough evidence, especially with this trend not having a break and new low yet. So I don't think you can go long there. You do get the break, and then it just kind of keeps chopping higher until it breaks out and goes higher. But notice what happens here. You make this new high, and you get a first entry, and then it pulls back. It breaks lower right there. And so when it goes above that bar right there, it's a second entry long. I don't think you want to trade that on the engulfing bar, but if this closes and breaks above it, you can go with that. Notice we tried to go lower multiple times here, and we just keep making higher highs and higher lows. And on the second entry with all these tests, notice we tested it really a couple of times here, then moved up and we tested it a couple of more times, and you have that little bit of a trout where it breaks lower and turns up and breaks out the higher side. Again, it's an advanced trade. I marked it green, but I like the trade. I will say I don't like it as much as I did the other one I talked about, green over here. But that's because it looks a little congested too. But that's because you're finding support here when a lot of people are thinking it may sell off. And once people realize they're wrong, it starts trending higher again. Now this is another one of those trends where it's gotten real strong. There's not really a lot of second entries and stuff in here that follow the trend line rules. But again, any one of these that gives you, I don't know if I would have done it here, maybe once it starts up here, any one of these signal bars that comes back to the main trend line, you just about have to take those because they're going to give you at least a scalp. So this is one of those strong trends that just keeps going. Even once you had the break, it still looked pretty strong. But there's another one right there. And then notice you had a 1, 2, 3 triple test with a nice signal bar, and that is a first entry, second entry. So I like that one. And then you get a higher low here as well, and you really could argue that's a double top, and you got another second entry right here. It didn't quite make a perfect double top, but it's close. I mean, the support is the key here when we're in an uptrend. And it looked like the trend line was higher here anyway. The trend channel line that's up here. And so there, I'm going to mark them all green, but you could have taken any of those if you understand what's going on. Especially these off this main trend line here. You do have your break now, move to a new high, you get a couple of legs, and then it sells off. And here's another one of those traps. But we had some support here. I don't think you want to enter that on the engulfing bar, and by the time it closes you have to go short at the low of the entire move there, and it's really big bar. So I think you have to sit tight, and then notice what happens. It tries to go higher once, twice, and there's a hidden second entry in there. So this confirms the trend line. It's the third touch. It's a failed second entry long. Technically, actually, I take that back because it did break higher here on this engulfing bar and turn down. So that's where the real failure happened. But there's a hidden second entry there, um, and it still looks like a failure. So even though this broke higher, this is still part of this first move. So really, it looks like first entry, and then it comes down, second entry, and then fails. So this one, I went back and forth. And notice, too, the other thing I meant to point out is notice that's where your measured move is. So notice you had a little failed break higher that came back and tested it right there. So that was the other part I liked about that one. This one turns out to be a really nice move. Actually, just to clarify here, your entry would be one tick below this bar because that's where it fails basically. And your safety stop would have to go above this bar because it's the signal bar makes the swing high. So hopefully that's clear. This is a little more advanced, convoluted. Probably should just make this one green. It probably shouldn't be red. But I really like that trade, and you can see it was a nice trap. Boom, it rockets down. And then we correct. You get a first entry, break pulls higher, and you get a second entry right there. Clearly 2 legs back, plus you get a break here and a new high, and you even get a lower high. But normally I won't mark anything after 230, but this was like right at 234. It's in the first 5 minutes, and it's a clear second entry, 2 legs back when you're looking for a new low. A lot of reasons to like that trade. I mean, it's even tempting to want to enter there if you didn't enter in the other spot. But by that time, it's it's 440, and that's really pushing your rules. The problem is, a lot of times you may not get a lot of movement after 230. But the real problem is if you have a loser here, it ruins your whole day. And so you don't have any time to make it back. You need to be. You shouldn't take any new trades after 230 for the most part. Now, if it's right in that first 5 minutes, you're probably okay. Anything after that, I just sit tight because if you mess up and take a loser, you're going to ruin your day, and you don't have. If you take a loss over here, you got all day to make it back. But if you take a loss here at 230, you only got maybe 30 minutes to make it back if you're lucky. So there's nothing wrong with taking a trade you're already into the 230 hour. Just don't take any new trades after 230 unless it's just right in that first few minutes and it's like an ideal perfect setup, kind of like this one is. So anyway, I hope that's clear. But yeah, not a lot of trades today other than the green ones, but that's because of the type of trends these are. This thing, when it starts going up every day, the buying is coming in there, and these are strong buying opportunities. They don't last very long. And then it usually sells off real strong afterwards. But take advantage of those where you can, and make sure you understand. You need to be more advanced for these. If you're not a profitable trader that's been profitable for a while, you probably don't want to trade these because they're more risky. But if you understand the trends, you realize they're very high probability. But your reads have to be correct. And most of you hadn't been doing this long enough where you've got the experience to understand these reads, and that's the difference. So just make sure that you sim trade it, practice it, do whatever, but make sure you understand what's going on. Don't take these live unless you've been profitable for a while. So there it is. Not much else I can say about it today. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to go over. I meant to look to see if Monday was going to be a holiday. I'm also, there's another thing I want to mention. I gave my family, all my kids, basically my Christmas present was them was I gave them a cruise to the Caribbean, and we're leaving it sometime here in January. So I'm not sure if it's the end of next week. I think it's the following week. So I'm going to be gone for another week there. I know we just got back, but this was my Christmas gift to my kids. So it's going to be another week there, but I'm going to be out of pocket. So just kind of giving you a heads up. I'll clarify the dates I'll be gone and what's going on when before I leave. But I'm just kind of giving you a heads up to be looking for that. I think we leave out not this coming Monday, but the Sunday, but the following Sunday. So I'll probably be working whatever days there are next week. I believe I can't remember what day we're leaving for New Orleans. So we're leaving out of New Orleans. So, but I'll clarify all that with you, and just wanted you to kind of give you a heads up on that so it doesn't catch you off guard that I'm going to be gone another week. But yeah, as my Christmas gift to my kids, and so it gives us a chance. And there was COVID floating around my family. We didn't really get to have a good Christmas, so we'll have our Christmas in January on the cruise. So that's kind of our plan. So anyway, that's about all there is for today. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow and wrap up our week for tomorrow. Believe it or not, another week's going to be gone by. We're halfway through January already almost. Man, time just flies. But it's always, time always flies when you're having fun. And I love trading. I love everything about it. It's why I do this. It's my passion. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.